when I finally came to, I was greeted by a cold, eerie breeze, and the sky was barely visible. The snowy fog consumed it. It wasn't until I stared at a snowflake as it fell weightlessly into the ground that I noticed it. The circle. This circle was the halo of the sun, as I was thought about by them. The three circles in the middle representing past, present, and future. The inner circle surrounding the three represented charity. The halo seemed to have been drawn out by blood, fresh by the look of it, but at first I thought it was with mine, as I clearly had the wounds for it. Some still bleeding out, but the assumption quickly faded as I realized it was far too big to have been my blood alone. I mean, it completely filled the crossroads of the streets that I was in, and I decided that I should get as far away from here as I could. At first, the stiffened body could only walk at a sad and slow pace, but as I went on further and further, I walked faster and faster till I was finally able to run, and so I ran. I was running past all these decrepit and old buildings, in which each building that I passed, the more I felt that I was being watched. There wasn't a person in sight, but you can almost tell that there was something watching you from each building. Something not natural. It wasn't right. I felt scared, and then all of a sudden I heard it. The sirens went on, and the world was being consumed by darkness, and it was as if I suddenly went blind. In the darkness, however, I could hear something. I could hear something scraping bone against what sounded like chains, and it was getting closer and closer and closer until finally it was too late. All I could see was a silhouette pinning me down. And it wasn't until the silhouette began to stab me that I woke. You'd think that waking up would be a relief in the realization that you were only dreaming, but no, not in this occasion. I woke up to a room that was filled with the scent of ash and some strange odor, but what was truly shocking was the halo in the dream was carved into my wall with its multiple... shit. I ran out of my room as soon as the odor started to become unbearable. As soon as I left the room, the scent, it quickly faded, and the room was back to normal. I decided that this was what was happening was nothing more than my mind playing tricks on me, from me spending my night just playing Silent Hill games, but somehow I highly doubted that. Don't get me wrong, I'm a Silent Hill fanatic, owning all of the series, games, and movies. I even bought some of the gaming consoles that normally I wouldn't care about. However, not once has something this vivid happened to me. I don't even get nightmares about the series, or regular dreams for that matter. So why now? Usually my dreams are black, nothing but darkness and more darkness as my mind wanders and puts the day together. As I rest in my sleep, could this be what my mind thinks about at night when I'm unconscious? Still, that wouldn't explain the events that I saw when I woke. The rest of my day was normal, and so were the following nights for at least 2 weeks at most. The next dream I had this time wasn't related to the first one as much as it looked as if it was a warning. In this new dream, I was at my parents' house, but it looked as if it's been ages since anyone's been there, and all my family pictures were replaced with these cultish portraits of some religious ceremonies. I decided to explore the house until I found some explanation of what happened. It wasn't until I started to examine the portraits that I noticed that one of them had a little bulge in it. So I took it off the wall and opened the portrait up to find a letter. The envelope was a bit old and dirty, and upon opening it, it was a message that said,
"Stay away from your family."
Flipping the letter over, it read,
"They are your family."
Upon reading this, I was awoken by the sounds of my neighbor's dogs barking. The following week, I decided to go do what every natural person would do, and it did what the letter told me not to. I called ahead of time and got no response. Rationally, I thought they were simply out getting the groceries or doing laundry. The drive to my parents' house was usually a few 2 to 3 hours long, depending on traffic. My parents lived on a small farm. It felt isolated at times, as if society was gone and you felt like you were back in a rural time where the air was clean from all of the world's waste. To my luck, the car was still in the driveway, meaning that they were home. I knocked. No response. I waited a couple of seconds and knocked again. Still no response. Confused, I decided to let myself in. My parents kept a key hidden inside a chicken coop. As I walked over to it, I noticed something a bit off. None of the chicks or hens were clucking, and when I reached the coop, they were all dead and their eyes were removed. I began to look for the key, but it wasn't there, not under any of the hay, nor under any of the crates or bags of seeds. And it wasn't in its usual location. I peeked out at one of the openings that showed the perfect view of the house. The house's front door was wide open. I began to walk back. With each step, a memory of my childhood would play. These memories were of me growing up, and they were of small things, like when my father was showing me how to feed and take care of the animals, and of my mother cooking, and our family dinners as we spoke about the simplest of things. When I got back to the house, I noticed a scent of ash and some strange odor. As I entered the house, I could hear something rocking back and forth on the wood, and the sound of what I believed were footsteps from below the house. The footsteps reassured me, as I thought it was most likely my dad in the basement, and the rocking was my mother on a rocking chair, but a part of me was still uneasy. I decided to go check on my father to see what he was doing. As I began to head for the basement, I noticed something peculiar. The closer I got to the basement, the more footsteps there were. It went from just 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, from 3 to 6, till I was no more than 7 feet away from the door, and he only let me in there once, and that was due to him accidentally getting drunk. I was about to reach for the doorknob, but when I heard something fall above me, No, there was no more rocking, no more footsteps. I felt as if I were in a void of sound, nothing was moving. Unable to hear my own footsteps, I ran upstairs to go check out what fell. I reached my parents' room and I could have sworn I was screaming. But nothing was coming out. Everything felt mute. What I saw inside, what I saw inside, I couldn't explain what happened. I wasn't even sure I was looking at them. It couldn't be. They had their clothes and their scent, but it couldn't have. I couldn't be there. I had to leave. I had to. But in the moment that I was lost with grief, I suddenly heard the door squeak open, followed with footsteps, louder and louder. In a panic, I ran into my room and blocked up the door, and the footsteps were still getting louder, and all I did was just stand on the door to make sure and keep pressure on it, but still, the footsteps, they went the other way, so I felt safe for at least a couple seconds. Only a couple, because I failed to realize there was someone in my room. End of part 1.
You're here, you're gone.